right, so we're here doing an interview. According to the syllabus, it had to be with a notable leader within the Christian community, and I couldn't think of anyone better to do an interview with than the outgoing president of the oldest and largest ministers conference in the country, the Hampton University Ministers Conference, as well as the pastor of a very successful ministry, the Gethsemane Baptist Church in Newport News, Virginia. Dr. Dwight Riddick is going to give us some insights, and I am excited about this moment. Thank you for giving me the time and allowing time out of your busy schedule to take this time and share with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation to come and share. I sometimes become concerned about the hype of being prominent. I'm really just a servant, but I'm delighted to share this time with you and to share basically my heart or whatever way I'm able to answer questions.
Well, we're going to take about the next 20 minutes or so and dig into some stuff that I literally am excited about, because with the course readings that we've been doing, it's really been helping me, so I really want to see how it applies from somebody with your experience.
All right.
So, first of all, tell us some backstory of how you've come to where you are now, where you started. You know, everybody got those humble beginning stories. To where you are on your, is this the third building, second building?
This is my second building.
Okay.
Second building.
And a building it is. It's a major facility. So give us some backstory.
All right. Well, thank you. I guess if I could summarize it all, is simply to say the hand of God upon us, upon our work. I came to Gethsemane Baptist Church May of 1985. I was 27 years old. It was a brand new church that resulted from a split from another congregation. And so there were by the time I arrived, about 200 people who were gathering for worship on Sundays. And the deacon who was leading them said to them, "Do you need a pastor?" And so the church had gone through a year of interviewing and doing what they call trial sermons with pastors. And just as they were getting ready to vote, in fact, had closed out the nomination, one of the deacons heard me preach someplace and went back to the church, as I'm told, and said, "Hey, before we finish, let's hear one more person." And I was that one person. And before I knew it, here I was as pastor of a brand new church. I was spanking green. I had come out of a rural context, didn't understand anything at all about this urban context. But we just watched God grow the church over the years. I prepared myself. I studied whatever I didn't know. I surrounded myself with great mentors, people who could pour into me to help me to understand how to do this thing called church. And here we are.
Wow.
Here we are 33 years later.
33 years later, and this is the second facility. The first one is not too far away from here.
Right, the first is about a mile away.
Okay.
And this is about 2.5 times bigger than the first facility.
And the first one I thought was a monstrosity the first time I ever came to it. So when I saw this one, I still get in awe when I pull up through the parking lot. So it's beautiful.
Well, our vision, of course, was never to build a building, but the vision was to build people. And the building would only facilitate the ministry that God called us to.
Wow. So let me ask a few questions, especially since we're talking about vision and facilities and ministry. So in a mission-based context, has the organizations that you've led, because you've also just exited as the president of the Hampton University Ministers Conference, how many attendees do they boast about now?
6,000 to 7,000.
7,000. It's 104 years old, and you were privileged to lead that for 4 years, which it was a great 4-year run. I enjoyed hearing you on President's Night every year. So has the mission of the organization, that either organizations that you've been the leader of, have they ever been halted by financial needs of the mission?
Wow. Well, let me say this as it relates to Hampton. The Hampton Conference is owned and run by the Hampton University. And so that conference normally does well because it is funded through the registration and the university infrastructure. I will say this, building this building has been a tremendous challenge. We have a pretty heavy note. This was a $12 million project. And of course, we brought a considerable number of million to the table. But even now, just operating a much larger facility, the need for larger staff, it is quite financially demanding. But the financial demands do not prohibit us from doing ministry. There are other things we could do if we had funds to do that. But what we've learned to do is we've learned to do ministry with what we have. We've learned to become creative. And times when we didn't have dollars to get certain things done that we would have spent prior, we've raised the question, well, how can we still do it? And so God has just released some creative juices in us, and we become creative in terms of how we do things. Here's a case in point. We're getting ready to start a program this summer. It actually starts next week. It is a program it's actually a summer camp that we will host. It will be a free summer camp. We will host for students between the ages of 12 and 15. Many of those students are unable to attend a summer camp. Some of them are too young to get a summer job. And so there's a group that's kind of left out there in between. So we have a large number of retirees in our church. I've asked retirees to come together to volunteer half a day. We've had enough people to schedule throughout the entire summer. And here's what I've asked them to do is, if you would just spend time with a young person, sharing with that young person your experience in life or your work experience. And so creatively, we've been able to put together an entire summer camp program. It is not going to cost parents any funds. It's not going to cost the church any funds. You've got people who are giving themselves and their time.
Wow. So that's how you manage mission, even when you don't always have the resources that you'd like to have to get it done.
By all means.
Oh, wow. Okay. So with you having accomplished so much in ministry, how long have you been pastoring here now?
This is my 33rd year.
33 years. How does one handle the challenge of not simply operating in maintenance mode and striving to keep the organizations thriving, to seeking further to excel after all these years, rather than just coasting along?
Well, we sat down as a congregation. I took leaders. In fact, when I finished my first doctoral program, which was in leadership, as a part of that program, doing something very similar to what you're doing now, I pulled leaders of our church together for an entire year. I taught them as it relates to vision and mission. We spent time seeking God, and reading and studying and understanding what the mission of our church would be. And so when the leaders kind of helped put the mission statement together with some guidance and direction, we now function out of our mission statement. And there is always an area that is incomplete or that we have never been able to saturate. So there's always something meaningful and purposeful for the church to be engaged in. And this is a year we're sitting back down. Let's say we're saying to each other, let's rethink church, because we know times have changed, the culture's changing. And so we're in a phase now where we are re-examining who we are as a church and what our role is in the community. But we're always functioning out of our mission statement.
Well, that actually segues into the next question perfectly, because the next question that I want to ask is, how do you view the Great Commission in today's context, or in the context of today's generational disdain for organized religion? And what is the difference in how the Great Commission is carried out between previous generations and the current culture?
Well, the commission has not changed. The culture certainly has changed, but the culture has always been somewhat antithetical to the gospel. But what we believe is preaching the gospel and declaring the gospel in such of a way that people can relate it to their own lives, allow for the fulfillment of the Great Commission. And so we still carry out the Great Commission. The methods sometimes change.
How so?
But the mission is the same. The method changes, for example, with the use of media. We are changing the way that we do some things. For example, our way of doing evangelism is being challenged. I'm not sure that you go door to door now,
right,
to do evangelism, but you can go cell phone to cell phone.
Oh wow, that was good. That was good. So you basically you move with the culture, but still with the with the intention of the Great Commission.
That's correct. And the needs have not changed. The needs of people remain the same. People need the saving power of God.
Amen.
Sin has not changed.
Amen.
And Jesus is still the remedy for sin. And so that's what we proclaim. But we have to use different methods of getting the gospel out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with that being said, how do you properly equip the next generation of leaders with the tools that they need to be successful and the knowledge that they need to even build build accomplishments comparable to yours after 33 years? How do we equip us, the guys coming behind you?
Well, I think that this is a season of re-engineering.
Wow, say more.
I think that we have to look at even our previous curriculums, training and development curriculums, and we have to raise the question, what does that need to look like now? How do we train leaders? I tell folk all the time, the training that we received 10 years ago, for the most part, is obsolete. And so we have to constantly retrain. It's a wonderful book. I can't call the author's name, but the title of the book is When Better Is Not Enough.
Wow.
And the premise of the book is that for most churches, we continue trying to do better what we've always been doing. But in essence, what we need to do is rethink it, re-engineer it, redesign what we do. And so even when it comes to training and developing leaders, is to look at the kind of training that leaders will need. We've got to look at the fact that we've got 4 or 5 generations now sitting in the pew. Leaders must be trained how to relate now across generations. No longer does one size fit all.
Right.
And so leaders have to understand how to develop, how to implement, how to carry out ministry based on the person that they're ministering to. Because you can't do one thing one way, or anything one way any longer. You've got to consider multiple ways of doing things. So ministry has to be multifaceted.
And I think some of the younger pastors that I've encountered or talked to, they kind of struggle with that because a lot of them don't identify with older generations in styles of worship. So they get caught up in the current music or the modern music. And I appreciate the age that I'm at because I'm young enough to still hit the millennials, but old enough to still remember grandmama and them.
Yeah.
And so, but how do the younger guys overcome that challenge?
I'm not sure if it is a challenge to be overcome. I think that along the way, each of us will find ourselves ministering to the generation that we're part of. You'll look around at my church today and you'll probably see more faces my age. Well, I know I can't be here always. So at some point in time, a person that's younger than I am will become the leader and will reach a generation that he or she identifies with and will be able to minister to that generation as he or she understands.
Wow.
And so I think God's designed it that way. We all pass off the seed.
Eventually, Moses, my servant, will be dead. Joshua, it's your turn now.
And hopefully not dead, but retired, right, or going to some other area of ministry.
Yeah.
And someone else comes along and takes on leadership.
Absolutely. So name one characteristic, if you would, that you believe leaders in this generation are lacking, and how can they go about possessing it?
Flexibility.
Oh wow, that was amazing.
Flexibility. In order for the culture of the church to change, or for the church to change, the leader, him or herself, must be willing to change. The leader, him or herself, must be flexible. One of the things I'm doing tonight is I'm meeting with the millennials in my church. I said to them, listen guys, would you meet with me? For all of these years I've been leading you, I need you to lead me.
Now that's amazing. And I need to add that none of these questions you had a chance to look at beforehand. So all of these are literally what's coming out of your heart, and that is amazing. That right there, I'm probably going to take that home with me with some other groups.
Yeah.
But so that's how they go about how do they go about possessing flexibility if they're not used to being flexible?
But I think that's inherent when it comes to being a leader. The leader always have to exercise some level of flexibility. I was speaking with peers a few weeks ago, and we had a discussion on that same area. And some of the pastors says, I really thought about the fact that I really hadn't been too flexible. I had kind of taken this stance. Now, to be flexible does not mean that I compromise the gospel.
Got you.
It does not mean that I compromise my values. But it does mean that I am flexible enough sometimes to hear other people, to recognize, as with the sons of Issachar, the times.
Wow.
And then being able to adjust to them.
Absolutely.
To understand everything around us is changing, and so I can't keep doing today what I was doing 10 years ago.
That is accurate. I'm coming up on my 9th year now, and I'm seeing how much things are changing from 9 years ago, and I'm still young in my head. Now my body might be telling me something different, but in my head. So as a leader who has clearly stood on your own merits over these years, what would you say that your personal core conviction about ministry is that drives you?
My core conviction that drives me, when you study the life of David, the Bible talks about how David took stragglers and made of them mighty men.
Oh,
so
you're about to shout me. You're about to shout me. You can't do that. I'm radical. I will turn this whole place out, because that was powerful.
But what drives me is being able to disciple, to work with people, to affect changes in their life. Great example yesterday. It really blessed me yesterday. There was a young lady who called, and she needed to speak with me. She says, "Pastor, listen, I wanted to talk with you because I need some help." She said, "I want to join your church, and I don't want to join your church because I need help." She said, "But I've been coming to your church because a friend of mine invited me. And I have seen how her life has changed. And I want it to happen to me.
Wow.
That's why I want to be a part of your church."
Wow. And the feeling that you probably had in that moment.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, we have challenges in ministry. People can sometimes, in the name of the Lord, be cruel and have to deal with all kinds of things. They leave the church and they put all kinds of stuff out and make up stuff when they can't find anything. Somebody asked me, said, "Why do you still do this? And people are so mean." I said, "Because I don't focus on the mean people. I looked at those people who I can literally tell you the moments that their lives shifted and how better they are."
Oh, yes.
And I think that's what keeps us all going.
That's what keeps us going, is to see the results of what we have been involved and engaged in, even if it's just in one person. And I don't think any of us who are in ministry could ever underestimate the impact that we may have upon the lives of people. You may not see it right now, but I think that there are so many people out there who have been helped by the gospel. And I know one person who's been helped by the gospel that nobody else has. That's me.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm mad that I'm running out of time, because this is literally enlightening. So let me ask the last couple of questions and cut across the field. What is one mistake that you have made since being a leader that you've actually witnessed other leaders make often?
Wow. Well, we make so many mistakes. Ministers trial and error. People would be honest and tell the truth. And for those who have shared principles and share those principles with others, I think if most people are honest, a lot of things people stumble up on. And when you stumble up on it, to be wise enough to recognize something God has revealed to you and being able to package that now in a way that you can pass on to others so that you can be helpful. So I think the one thing that I've done is probably pastor more with my heart.
Wow.
than with my head.
Now, you know, that's as oxymoronic as we can get, because we talk about pastoring, which God said, I'll give you a pastor according to my own heart. But after these years of seasoned ministry, hearing you say, sometimes I pastored more with my heart when I should have pastored with my head. Can you elaborate on that for a couple seconds? Because I know I'm out of time, but that's good.
But, you know, sometimes, you know, I know even sometimes in building staff, one of the major mistakes I've made sometimes is hiring people to help them, to give them a job.
With your heart.
With my heart, as opposed to making sure I have the right person in the right place. I had this thing, well, you know, I can teach them, help them to acclimate themselves to the role. And maybe I should have been a little more intentional about hiring the right person based upon their skills.
Wow. Wow. That is, whew. Okay, last question. What personal experience stands out the most that exemplifies your mark on your organization that you lead? For example, Gethsemane Baptist, and or in your personal life or your professional life even.
Well, I think there's anything that stands out. Tenure has its advantage. And as much as I am probably a pastor, I've also become a father.
Wow. This is powerful. How does that make you feel that you've been around long enough to father people, not just father your kids, because you've done an amazing job fathering your kids. Your son's a great pastor, your daughter works in ministry, but how does it feel to know that you're fathering people?
That's rewarding. That's rewarding because, you know, I've watched kids this year graduate that I also baptized, dedicated as babies. I've got people who come back bringing their babies, and I said to them, I dedicated you. But it puts me in a position now where I am able to speak into their lives with authority, with love, with compassion. And I think that there's a level of respect, and the level of respect has to do with the fact that relationship has been sustained so long.
Wow. That is amazing. Dr. Dwight Riddick, the pastor of the Gethsemane Baptist Church, the great Gethsemane Baptist Church in Newport News, Virginia, and the now past president, just outgoing of the Hampton University Ministers Conference, which is the largest and oldest ministers conference in the country. Thank you so much for this time. It was amazing. Can't wait for the camera to go off so I can hear some more from you. Thank you. Thank you for your time, man. I pray God blessings upon you.
My pleasure.